This past week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met with senior U.S. officials, including White House advisor Jared Kushner, to discuss the next steps of the U.S. peace plan, or the deal of the century, as it's been called. Kushner was on a tour of the Middle East to drum up additional support and discuss the plan with the region's leaders. And so the question remains, what are the prospects for peace? This week's meeting took place amid political uncertainty in Israel as the country is headed for a second round of elections on September 17th and takes place amid a changing international landscape. And so here to discuss the U.S. peace plan and the prospects for peace between the Jewish state and the Palestinians is Dr. Martin Sherman, Executive Director of the Israel Institute for Strategic Studies.
Thank you for having me.
So, Dr. Sherman, you've been very critical about the U.S. peace plan and it actually being able to do what it promises, right? Provide peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Why is that?
Well, let me say, I'm skeptical in general about the prospects of peace with the Palestinians, and I'm skeptical specifically about the Trump plan. Why I'm skeptical in general is because I believe that the bargain that needs to be struck between us and the Palestinians is insoluble. In other words, I think the maximum that Israel can offer and still maintain minimum security is less than the minimum that the Palestinians can accept if you really believe what they want to do is set up a state of their own rather than dismantle the Jewish state. So I find it very difficult to envision any plan that can satisfy both Israel's requirements and the Palestinian desires.
Right, well, we don't really know the details of the political aspect of the plan, but Israel going in is, I think, in a much stronger position, right? Because President Trump has already, for example, recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. What's your take on this?
Well, I think, Israel's position has improved over the years quite remarkably, but unfortunately, I don't think this is because of any enhanced Israeli policy. We had Sisi take over Egypt from the Muslim Brotherhood. We had Trump win the election against Hillary against all odds. So if things had gone the other way, we would be in a very, very difficult position. And there's no guarantee that the fair winds that are blowing at the moment will continue. I think that Israel has been a little remiss in not capitalizing on this the goodwill in Washington today, and bolstering its hold and securing its hold in Judea and Samaria, so that any thought of relinquishing it will be unfeasible.
In fact, quite the contrary. The Israeli government has just approved the building of a number of Palestinian homes in Judea and Samaria. What's your take on this?
I think that's sending the wrong message. For Israel to endure as the nation state of the Jewish people, it has to address adequately two imperatives: a geographic imperative and a demographic imperative. The geographic imperative means it must hold at least enough territory to make any Palestinian state untenable, and the demographic imperative means it has to reduce the Arab presence there in order to allow it to become a dominantly Jewish state. Because if you extend sovereignty over the whole of Judea and Samaria and leave the Arab presence there, I don't think that a Jewish state will be viable, even if the optimistic demographers are correct and your initial Muslim minority is only 35 to 40%. I don't think that's a recipe for Lebanizing Israeli society. And so I believe that the only policy that can ensure the existence of Israel over time as the nation state of the Jewish people is large-scale incentivized immigration of the Arab population there to allow them to find more prosperous and more secure lives in third-party countries and free from the clutches of the cruel, corrupt cliques who've led them astray for decades.
But that seems like a very unlikely scenario.
No, not really. I don't think so. Because first of all, if you look at Gaza, there's a huge desire in Gaza to leave. In fact, the only thing preventing a massive exodus from Gaza is the lack of money. And if Israel were to provide relocation funds and dismantle the Hamas regime there, I'm sure that the Gazans would be very happy to find a better and more prosperous life elsewhere.
Now, let's just take a look at the world stage as well, because that will play a significant role. We see new leadership in the UK. We see anti-BDS resolutions being announced in Europe, in Germany, and in the United States. And we see Israel befriending many of the Arab states due to, let's say, the threat of Iran. How do you think this will affect the peace plan, if at all?
Well, the atmosphere might be slightly more clement in Israel's favor, but that doesn't mean that we don't have to solve the problem. Because one thing I do agree with the left wing in Israel is that the status quo over a long term is unsustainable. I mean, you look at Gaza. What's the plan for Gaza in 20 years' time? And in the same, you can ask the same question about Judea and Samaria. So whilst I think political pressures might be lessened, it doesn't lessen the need for finding a solution, which, as I've said before, in my opinion, is a large-scale incentivized immigration of the Arab population to find a better and more prosperous life elsewhere.
And do you envision the Trump peace plan addressing this at all?
Well, there are rumors that certain aspects of that are in the Trump plan, that they see a suggestion that a large number of Palestinian Arabs will be resettled in Jordan and be naturalized as Jordan citizens. So it's not as general as the principle that I'm addressing, but there certainly are specific elements that seem to be consistent with the suggestion.
Great. Well, Dr. Martin Sherman, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you for having me.